Southern California has been devastated by the Palisades and Eden fires, which burned more than 37,000 acres combined, leaving the ground charred and full of toxic debris, posing a real problem not only for the soil, but the water, really for everything.
Right. So the big question is, can the soil recover? Let's bring in Dr. Alex Beebe, Assistant Professor of Geology at the University of South Alabama. Alex, thanks for talking to us. We know this soil goes hydrophobic, but it's bigger than that in the fact that what does it have in it now after everything's
Chemicals,
burned? I mean, can you even, how do you even classify it?
It's really highly variable, and it really just depends on what exactly was on the ground surface during the fire and the intensity of the fire. So you can have anything from just charcoal, which could be actually good for the soil, to things like metals and plastic residues and all sorts of organic persistent contaminants that can remain in the soil and cause problems.
So let's talk about how they cause problems. I mean, I'm assuming all those chemicals and the toxicity of it not only can go down deep into the soil, but gets into the water as well. And how do we fix that?
Yeah, it's really kind of a challenge because you have these, especially things like metals, that they just don't disappear. They're going to end up either trapped in the soil, or with rainfall, they could be washed along the surface to rivers and streams. And they can also be washed further into the ground, into groundwater resources. And so, really trying to reestablish the natural conditions is a long process. And, some of the things that we can do is try to stabilize the soil, remove any contaminated soil, remove any contaminated debris, and try to revegetate the area.
So I wanted to ask you, Dr. Beebe, once you get in there and you even clean the soil, is there some of these chemicals that have like a shelf life, in the soil, and they just can't be removed by just simply,
digging it up or right?
whatnot? I mean, do you have a shelf life of some of these toxins?
Yeah, and that shelf life can extend beyond like human generations. So some of the contaminants, especially some of the organic contaminants, are what we call persistent pollutants, and they just kind of stay there just about forever. So unfortunately, in that situation, really the only way to deal with that level of contamination or that type of contamination is through disposal. So actually removing the soil and replacing it with nice, clean soil.
You had mentioned charcoal would actually be good for the soil. Can you elaborate a little bit more on some things that actually burn and can be helpful? Try to give a little bit of a positive light here.
Yeah, so, going back through human history, fires have been used to kind of amend the soil and make soils more productive. But, typically that's in the case where you're not burning things like plastics and, batteries and lead paints and things like that. So, fires in a natural situation, wildfires can actually mobilize nutrients and carbon and things that plants need to grow. But the challenge here is having a fire in an urban area kind of does the opposite. You're going to be releasing things that you do not want to amend the soil with, or that you want to add to the soil.
If you don't get these toxins out and you just rebuild, at your home site, can some of this leach back in ways?
Yeah, so, we worry about if you're building a property on contaminated soil, you have direct exposure to the soil can introduce toxicity, but also many organic contaminants are what we call volatile. And so they actually, they'll turn into the air, and so they can actually drift upwards. So if you have a building on top of a contaminated site, it can actually trap those vapors within the building and cause issues.
We only have like 15 seconds. Is there anything we can do? I mean, what should people know? Real quick.
Yeah, this is going to be a slow process. And really, I think we're pretty heavily reliant upon state and federal organizations to provide guidance and to also, do the remediation.
Yeah.
Dr. Alex Beebe, Assistant Professor of Geology at the University of South Alabama. Thanks for talking to us about this. It sounds like you just need to remove it. But then where do you put it?